gentleman that's passed away that was on this committee, that he jumped up and down for, 2 years about that being, the building being in the flood zone down there. And that's when the study, where that delineation came from, that flood zone study. Because but I do know that I've got a bunch of house lots right now that with undelineated flood zone, that the banks won't even entertain a loan on, because there's even one little piece of it on the house lot at all.
For municipal bonding, they don't look at flood zones.
No, but they were talking about USDA loan for this project.
Potentially, but it would also potentially be just a market bonding, municipal bonding as well. And a USDA doesn't, delineate as well.
Just a question.
It's interesting, some banks ask for it, some banks don't, and I know Paul, the surveyor I use, has done a bunch of these lonas. You know, it was suggested that we might need one on some property that we had, and the bank never asked. The insurance company never
You
asked.
were lucky. Sorry to interrupt.
That's quite all right. We can do some further checking into that. This is the schematic sort of diagram that had been presented and reviewed previously. So we've developed it a little bit further. This is in just a little bit more detail, just to demonstrate that the blocks of color are still basically in the same locations, with the senior center portions wrapping around the court here, the court in the center, and the recreation department and registrar over in this location. We've looked at it certainly in more detail. We're going to blow it up a little bit just because it's a little bit hard to see. So we're going to look at the top portion. So just remember, we're looking at the top half of the building, coming into a new vestibule here with a lobby opening space. To your left is what we're calling the senior living room, with soft stone and a mixture of soft and hard seating, sort of a living room feel with some bookcases, a kitchenette over in this corner with some high seating, some table seating here. In the corner is a craft room with some storage that can be used as a multi-purpose room, but we have located a sink in there, so it can be used as a craft room. Billiards and computer area over here. There's enough space around each of the billiard tables for games of billiards, but it's not going to be used all the time. So, bringing over the computers into this space makes that sort of a recreation area. We've located two restrooms, new restrooms in this location. They're both companion restrooms with showers in them, male and female. Connecting through a new door here, we've reduced the mechanical room. Of course, we infilled the missing tooth of the building in order to get all of this square footage. Reduced the square footage of the mechanical room and brought that level up so that the dining area and multifunction space can sort of wrap around this corner. The kitchen is in the area of the old vestibule on the other side, with the patio on the exterior over here.
Were there bathrooms in that back corner before?
Back here,
No.
There's nothing there.
We're using a septic system here, or we're tying into the municipal sewer?
Well, that's up for discussion.
My question would be whether or not there's pitch that far away from the septic system. Just, yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
The billiard room with the computers, wouldn't that be kind of disturbing for those using the computers?
It
Having
could be.
billiards getting clashed behind you?
It could be, yes. I mean, we looked at a number of different places for these computers. We can put them, we can bring them back over here. I guess our thought is that, you know, the billiards is not gonna be a constant use. Usually people come in and play for a little while, and leave, so, and the computers themselves can at times have some noise associated with them in terms of people typing on the keyboards. So, in this plan, we thought it might work as a combination, but we can certainly take a look at that and bring those back more into the living room if you thought that's.
The building would be Wi-Fi enabled, so.
Yes.
People might come with their own laptops, I would think, and.
We originally had the billiards in its own room, like it is with a door, but everything started just to become a room off of the program room, so we wanted to try to open it up as much as we could.
Well, I'd like to get that you have access all the way around so that people don't have to cross the court to have access to the other side.
I'm kind of surprised that you have 2 billiard tables. I've been on a lot of elderly housing in Newry. There's nobody playing pool at any time of the day, ever, for the one pool table they have there. So I'm kind of surprised that you're having 2 in this small community center. They take up a lot of room, and you need a lot of room around them. So I don't know, maybe there's particularly, you know, high pool playing senior population, but it seems like to have 2 would take up a lot of room that other, just my thoughts, maybe the seniors really like to play pool and play, I don't know.
We
I
can
just
talk about
asked the
that.
same question.
They will.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
We
it
based it
seemed to
on
me one would be
Chip
fun.
Patrick, I think it was, and they had
Oh, really?
2, yeah.
So we can certainly, I don't know if anybody has any
Remove one.
comment, but, you know, we can put a couple of card tables in there instead of, you know, a pool table and a couple of card tables. It could be a ping pong table. So we can show whatever. Does anybody have?
If the space is there and
The space is.
down the road, you need another billiard table, we can always get it,
Yeah.
as long as the space is there, I mean, so, that's not a problem.
So for this one, maybe we wanna show just one billiard table and then maybe a couple of card tables? No? No? Everybody?
If the pool ball goes flying off the table, you know, they break, and I don't know if that would be conducive to having playing cards at the same time. It just might be too loud. I think there's plenty of places to play cards. Do you wanna have a card game there?
Table tennis is probably.
Yeah. I think it was Paul back there said, I think you start with one, you can always add another, and see how, how they, let the room decide what it's gonna be.
Could you talk about the mechanical room and what you're doing to shrink it to that size?
We're gonna use some condensing boilers, and working with our mechanical systems. We haven't gotten specific with the mechanical system as of yet. We wanna get the schematic design down to the point where you're satisfied with it first.
The only thing we've decided about the mechanical room is, I'm looking at the plan now, we should eliminate the stairs, but, it's not worth having that lower level going down with the landings that you
Oh,
need, so that's
absolutely.
being filled all over. Those stairs would no longer be required.
But you're gonna use the same type of heat out on the main floor and, you know, talking about the
Yeah.
radiators or whatever it is out there.
Again, we haven't gotten that specific with.
So you're gonna have to before you go costing.
Absolutely.
Will we have input to that before you go to costing?
Sure.
So you're looking at air conditioning too, correct?
We were talking about that with the committee, and I think that the question is whether or not you wanna air condition the entire central space or just the perimeter space. So that was a question that we had.
Yeah, it's an awful lot to cool that big middle space, high ceiling.
Especially if it's gonna be used for recreation purposes, you know, to actually keep people who are playing basketball pool might require more, so.
So I haven't been in the space in a while, so I don't know what the ceiling height is, and I assume it's a cement floor.
Mhm.
Yes,
So are we talking about, is there room, are you talking about putting ductwork and a drop ceiling?
potentially, yes.
That center section is the higher part where there's
Correct.
windows on top.
Well, I think it's gotta be cooled. That doesn't make any sense not for it to be.
The entire
I see.
building, Joe?
I don't, no, the basketball court, I mean, you know, if you're out there to work out, so. And I think there'll be, you know, except for the lights up above, the windows will probably add some heat into the place, but I think, in the summertime, you know, you play basketball more in the winter than you play in the summer, but, you know, I think if you're out there for a workout, you're out there to make a good sweat, so.
John,
Go for
Louise,
it.
Paul, do you have any input on the cooling?
I think, you know, the way it is right now, you know, cooling is a central part, would be difficult.
Yeah, unless you're using that space for more multi-purpose
Yeah, see the.
events, if you're using it where you can put tables and have, you know, some sort of an event in there, then you probably want cooling, but, you know, if it's just gonna be an athletic facility, maybe you don't want cooling.
And we had talked about, and again, I understand that we're talking about a substantial price increase. But I guess the other bottom line is, if it's gonna be used, it'd be nice to keep everyone cool, certainly. We also talked about using that space for senior activity, for other kinds of things, and I think if that's the case, air conditioning would be a must. If it's something that is, you know, cost prohibitive, I mean, I think we'd have to look at that as well and say, okay, do we not, you know. I think we have to look at every little thing, cause, you know, obviously the price is gonna continue to escalate.
Can we have that as an add-on, or
Sure, we can look at it.
then we can make that decision when we see the numbers? Does that make sense to the committee?
Yeah.
What's the interior of the building? I assume that we have to bring this space up into, you know, today's insulation codes,
It is an existing building,
so
so
it'll be grandfathered.
there are exceptions and leniencies for existing buildings, and I think that's part of the advantage of using an existing building, is not having to bring it up completely to
Mhm.
the energy requirements of today.
But we probably would wanna do something on the inside of the bare walls, only because, you know, putting all new systems in it, we don't want the air just to seep right out. So a level of insulating and additional finish would be good.
So you thought it was probably, steel stud, the exterior wall, maybe spray it?
Yes, potentially, when we take a look at that wall system, but again, a lot of the walls are just cinder block walls, and they're not particularly homey or comforting, so. And we are adding windows to it,
Mm-hmm.
so, as Valerie said, bringing up the level of finish and insulation to a certain degree.
The question was asked about drop ceilings, and what about these new systems, these, like Mitsubishi
Right, we've been
retrofit
using,
systems?
VRF systems, quite a bit, and that's probably what
You'll
we would recommend.
So
Not
we want the
intrusive.
spaces to be zoned, and
Yeah,
instead
That
of
would be on the
ducts,
perimeter
like,
of
there'll be like
the
little,
ball field.
chillers,
Cooling pipes,
yeah,
yeah,
the
cooling
pipes that
The
will then
individual
turn
rooms
into
around.
like a variable air valve that will,
Correct.
Well, it's good, you can regulate, shut off rooms
Right.
you're not using, and be energy efficient that way.
On the lower half of the building, remember the vestibule is here, a receptionist, administrative assistant here, that has a counter and a window to greet people coming into the lobby space. The director's office, directly adjacent to that, a large meeting room that can be accessed here, as well as off the program room space, the large court space here. The idea is to have a portable wall so that this space could be used as a much smaller meeting room, conference room at times, and still be accessed for a larger room from the other direction.
Is that all part of the senior complex too?
Well,
That's senior.
yeah, I mean, you'd be able to use it, like if recreation needed it, they'd be able to use
Recreation
it.
too? Okay.
Department of Recreation, office and, assistant's office, a vestibule, second, vestibule here that really sort of exists now to get back out of the building. And it could be used as the entrance for Veterans Affairs, a separate entrance for Veterans Affairs. And the registrar's office, a large, 402 square foot recreation storage space, and then redeveloping the men's and women's restrooms, basically where they are now, in the same general location. Mallory, you've gotten some feedback on the kitchen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the equipment?
We got feedback, from what you wanted, and we're just working with, a kitchen consultant of ours to make it all fit in that space.
Something else has come up with that. The organization that I'm involved with, the Youth Wellness Organization, has fitness, nutrition people. But anyway, the nutrition people wanna offer to the seniors the ability to teach cooking. So if elderly loses their mate and they need to have, be taught, so it basically needs to be a teaching kitchen, whatever that means. That's what's being brought up. That I know, I think there'll be a call for that. I see some heads nodding in the back, but I
There,
don't,
I believe that there are a couple of questions for that, Mr. General. One is if the kitchen is to be used to really produce meals on a large scale basis, then that needs to be, a real commercial kitchen. And inviting people into that kitchen, is one thing in terms of potentially leaving enough space around counters, for people to gather and be taught. I think another approach is to keep this kitchen separate, but then maybe have a separate sort of, smaller, more residential type kitchen on the other side of it that might have, like a mirror over the range so that people can see the, people cooking in the pots and that sort of thing. So tell me which.
I don't know if it has to be that elaborate. Right now, the organization is using Teagues over in Thompson, and that is, I think, similar to what's been requested here. It's just maybe the layout needs to be a little different to accommodate.
Could we outfit the kitchenette, and make that a little bit larger to make sure that the pieces, cause a typical person's gonna have a stove, a microwave,
Yeah.
The oven, they're not gonna need to be in there with the fry-later and the 3-bay sink and whatnot. I'm wondering if we were to just tweak the kitchenette,
Yeah.
how often would the classes be and what might the attendance be?
I think it's an as-needed basis. Right now, it's being done for, underprivileged to learn healthy cooking. In this case, we'd be trying to accommodate those that have lost the mate that was the one that was doing the
Right.
cooking.
Have you been consulting with Northeast District of Health on that kitchen?
No, should do.
Because once they get in, they're gonna want, 7 sinks and, a
I don't know
3-bay.
if we wanna go there because,
Well,
Like
if you have a
what?
kitchen, you might not, they're gonna have to approve it, you're not gonna have a choice but to go there.
It needs safe serves and all that kind of stuff.
it might be wise that we contact them and have them look at we can, I'm sure, Denise can help you, or Mary can help you get a hold of NDDH. Yes.
I thought initially this kitchen wasn't gonna be to this expanse.
Well, I guess at this point, it's not a commercial kitchen, it's something less. It's not a commercial kitchen, is it? Pretty close?
Basically.
You're serving the public.
Yeah, I mean, we can go over the list of equipment,
I didn't
but
think it was to be serving the public. I thought it was for the seniors to have a place to heat up and prepare food. I thought initially that's all that was being requested.
Yeah, but
Where did this serve the public come in?
when you use it as
Is
a
that in
shelter.
a couple of meetings I didn't
Well,
have?
not doing that.
We're not doing
Oh,
that
not
as a
doing that,
shelter.
okay, all right.
No,
Seniors
that's
are-
all public.
Yeah.
I think the thought was it was the seniors for the public, they wanted to be able to hold, potential, dinners and stuff like that, so they would be needing to prepare larger quantities of food for serving, you know, if they were to do, they say dinner dance or a, you know, a fundraiser dinner or something like that. I think that was one of the things, and I know that, recreation, was the, side that had requested, still making space for, not necessarily outfitting right away, but making space for a fry later. But beyond that, it was really just the capacity to be able to serve a large number of seniors if they were to do a large event.
Well, what about senior meals? Would they need a real kitchen for the senior meals? Weren't you
I mean,
thinking about senior meals?
I think we've talked about a lot of different things, including, you know, meals being a site there. I think it's important that we put together what we need so that figures can be drawn, and I wanna be careful that we don't get into any details that we don't need to have at this point, but certainly if we need them for a price analysis, that's important to decide as well.
I think this is gonna be one of the biggest things this and mechanical probably gonna be two of the biggest things we're gonna need to settle before we can go costing, because that's valid that MDDH has to get involved. What George says is true. They're gonna have their say here one way or the other.
did you wanna review the equipment again? We have the list.
We can, I don't, you know, I think the people from Commission on Aging know what it is, and as far as the committee is concerned, you wanna go over the list again? Does it mean anything?
Has the commission, specified, equipment or?
Well, you were trying to duplicate what you saw in Chepachet more or less, weren't you?
No, we're much, less, we have much less going on in Chepachet.
Chepachet has more equipment?
Yes, we're just trying to get to the bare basics of what you guys would need.
Talking about a good sized refrigerator, we're not talking about a walk-in?
Just, no, just an upright,
Right.
probably like 3-foot Delfield freezer, separate fridge,
And are we doing fryolators?
yes.
So if you're doing fryolators.
Making
we're
space
doing-
for it, but not
Are we
putting.
putting a hood in?
Grill with
You're
a
gonna
hood,
have to,
The fryolator, yeah.
and you're gonna have to put the fire,
convection oven,
protection.
prep table, 6-burner stove,
You're
So
gonna
you're
have to
have
do
the
like a
SO
restaurant.
yeah.
I think when we started talking, we've talked a lot about different kinds of kitchen. I think we started talking in part about the commercial kitchens in an effort to look toward the future and say, may there be a time where we're either serving, as Mary mentioned, serving larger groups of people and or having fundraisers to also help the senior center be a little more, self-reliant on creating their own funds to help with some of the costs we may need going forward.
Of the
I think
current-
we also have to have a very open mind and understand that that is a much larger expenditure. In an ideal world, that makes sense on a lot of levels. It also would assist us in potentially being a Meals on Wheels site, maybe leading to something else down the road. And so, you know, there are, I think the thought, and actually the best person on our committee who knows the most about this is not here this evening, but she's had a lot of experience, and that's Linda Lamoureux. And, she does a lot of work with the senior center in Brooklyn, which does have a commercial kitchen. And again, the goal is not to be, unrealistic about what we are desiring, but also to say, what are the ways in which we can serve the community down the road, so we're not asking for something larger down the road. And also, really the biggest thing was to generate some funds to help sustain on some level the senior center and having a number of fundraisers. So that we could cook on site to bring the community in and hopefully generate some funds. We're very aware that, you know, the future in terms of the funding may be very difficult. So we're trying to keep an open mind and just say, okay, how can we also be somewhat self-sustaining on some level?
Well, if this was my building and I was doing it, I would sort of insist on having a quality kitchen, that has some capacity to it. And you mentioned Meals on Wheels, and if the current administration decides to do away with that program, I
Right.
think you're gonna see it coming down to the local level,
Absolutely.
you know.
And I think, you know, a lot of that is happening already in a lot of different soup kitchens, and that, you know, I will share that this is the line of work I'm in, and the need continues to be greater than the opportunities to serve the public. So, again, we're looking as not only a senior center, but a really strong potential for a community site that serves many of our people regardless of their age. So, that's sort of the method to our madness.
And you mentioned that it was the recreation department that asked about the having a fire lane?
Yes.
We were looking for a fire
What was
lane.
the-
We were
what
actually
was
not
the vision?
requesting a fire lane.
No, I know, the recreation
Right.
department,
What was
so
their
Willie's department.
vision for that?
I think in just being able to do potential, fundraising things as well for them, they feel more that a fire lane would be able to be utilized by them. Again, all of the equipment per se was requested to just have space made available for it, but not have the actual cost of the equipment purchase be included in the cost of the project. It was felt that there would be, less expensive ways for us to acquire that, rather than through this process, so the kitchen was being laid out for the space needs of those pieces, but the pieces weren't actually being purchased in this.
Makes sense, because
Yeah.
there's restaurants go under all the time, there's a million and one places to get restaurant equipment. I don't think we have to go to Cisco and buy brand new, equipment, so I think that, yeah, leave it out, give us the, I don't know, give us an electrical allowance or whatever, I don't know, give us, you know, the things you're gonna need there. Is gas going to this building?
Yeah, I believe it is.
So,
A grease trap for
Grease trap.
drainage and probably build in the Ansel system, build it in as opposed to.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. That you're probably not gonna get used, or you probably don't wanna get that system used, yeah. But you have to make sure that the line's big enough.
Back to whether this will be used as a teaching, kitchen, we just wanted to check. If you wanna do that, that's fine, we'll just need to know for additional space.
Yep. You mean for the teaching kitchen or for the NDDH?
For the teaching kitchen, we'll have to look into the Board of Health issue separately.
I'm just looking at the size of it compared to what's over at Teague, and I think
Undersized.
you're bigger than them by far.
How many people are in the classes in town?
Well, again, you can alter the size and just offer multiple classes, so. It's probably better to have hands-on and do it more often. I know in the case of the seniors, it'll probably be one or two at a time. But it's something that we wanna offer, and it'd be nice if there was at least some forethought about that happening.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, looking at this, listening to these things that are missing that we need to solve before you go to costing, looking at your costing, your forecast, and when you would have costing done, it was mid-June, is that, if I remember right? Is that when?
Yeah. We can look at our proposed schedule.
So,
We have like a week or two to
get
massage
this-
this.
yeah, so that means we'll have to either meet again, or how are we gonna handle this with these questions?
I think, you know, just include the Ansel, the event system and
Mhm.
leave the,
No, I'm talking more about the other things that we've been talking about, like the mechanical system.
mechanicals, I mean, I think.
There's a lot of choices with the mechanicals,
Right, so we had basically looked at the month of May to
Mhm.
finalize these plans
Correct.
and develop the cost estimate.
Yeah.
So we're right here at the
Mhm.
end of April.
Yeah.
So looking for Armory conceptual design approval. Refine and document the preferred concept for both the town hall and the Armory. Town hall is basically done. But then the green would be, a couple of weeks for cost estimate. So this, yellow star is basically your meeting for next month, you know, towards the end of May.
Okay, so
So
sometime in
that-
between.
That was our goal.
Yep.
So we left ourselves some time to develop the plans, but we'll.
So 2 weeks from now, we need to settle
So
those
what's,
questions.
so Alan, what's the charge on the heat? Are we just gonna, you know, charge them to go out and find the, you know, most efficient, least costly? Are we gonna actually dictate what we're asking
Well,
them to
no,
bid
I
on,
would
or-
think you're gonna have alternatives. You just had one right there about the air conditioning. You'll
Mhm.
have heating alternatives too, I would think, type of heating and,
So since the electrical, HVAC MEP is all just a line item, we can still get these to the estimator,
without those.
without those and still work on them. And
Later.
as far, I don't feel like we would need a specific meeting for the HVAC systems. We can outline, some options and send it through
Do
via
it
email.
electronically, yeah.
Right, and you guys can meet or discuss if you want,
Mhm.
but if you want us to meet again, that's fine too.
Okay, I'm sure, we've interrupted, I'm sure.
No, that's all right.
As we go through, there might be a few more to add to the list.
Well, and again, this is just a proposed schedule.
Yeah.
And actually, now that we're looking at it, maybe we can all keep this in our heads. Yes, sir.
Not to interrupt, but I will. What is the capacity of the service entrance now for electrical?
I believe it's a 220, I'm not sure.
Okay. Would that have to be increased?
I think that's adequate, but again, we were looking for the conceptual schematic right now to figure out, you know, where those spaces are
Okay.
and what the needs are gonna be, so.
All right. Okay.
Typically, we do, there is an increase and a new service is brought into buildings when they're renovated, so.
All right. Thank you.
With a potential new transformer and all new building systems.
Yeah, that electrical's old.
You probably don't have a 200 amp system in there.
No, you need 400 amp anyway. Especially if you go to, depends what you do with your,
Heating.
with your heating and cooling.
So, again, while we're on it, looking at the schedule, we were shooting for, again, a cost estimate for the two projects towards the end of May. Now, we also acknowledge that typically there's a bit of sticker shock whenever there's a project. So we've allowed basically another 3 weeks to a month for value engineering and discussions with the committee as to, you know, what may be in and what may be out and those alternatives. So we were shooting for, towards the end of June, to finalize the budgets, to meet with the finance committee and meet with the board of selectmen to present the two projects. That leaves, basically the summer to develop, and introduce the project to the community. So with a hope for a vote in around September. So is that what you're expecting?
Well, I think that schedule, we've all seen that schedule before. I don't think that's anything new.
I think if we wanna keep going, we have, I mean, if if we keep postponing and
Yeah.
postponing,
No,
it's not gonna
no.
get done. So I
Right.
think we just have to keep moving and charging along.
Right.
Now, the Board of Selectmen is, with the town attorney, has said that we don't wanna be in the election period, which is later September and October.
You don't, excuse me, you don't wanna be in?
We don't wanna be voting in that period. We don't wanna be working on this project in that period.
I see. Okay.
So we can email you along the systems if that seems appropriate, and we'll still send it off, after you see the rest of it.
I'm a proponent of geothermal, so I hope that you consider that.
I consider that expensive.
You do? Expensive now or expensive in the future?
Well, there's a payback for it, but it's always a balance as to whether or not you want to pay for it now and wait for the payback or the less expensive systems now.
Another
So we can take a
alternative.
But also we run the lines vertically and not horizontally on your site, and I don't know how far past flood zone A, like what your base elevation is for.
Oh, to run the grid, you mean?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, what, for the,
For the geothermal?
for wells or?
No, not wells. Trench grid,
Oh, ground?
No, but I'm saying I don't think on this
A
site you
ground
would wanna do
temperature?
horizontal.
ground temperature transfer.
I don't think you have the
Size,
size.
because of the size of the building?
Right, and I don't think it's advised that you drive over it, so most of our lot is,
Oh, I've never heard that before.
oh, I thought I
It's
remember.
my understanding that our lot is larger than the footprint that you had shown,
Yes.
okay, because it goes further
Yeah,
to the street, the Wicker,
Mhm.
yeah.
okay, that whole outside, that whole
Right.
That's
section
all
is
part of
also
the lot.
part of the lot, right?
I think we're showing what our original intent of was for like the limit of
Okay.
our work, which has been since
I
decreased
thought it had
actually.
been abbreviated for some reason, but we still own all the way to the
Right,
street.
yes.
Yes,
Okay.
but we were trying to determine, what is the limit of work
Mhm.
so that we can get a good cost estimate.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about potentially moving into this area with some geothermal systems so that we're not driving over it,
Yeah.
we can look at that, that'll
I
increase the
understand.
You're looking at a Mitsubishi type system, or,
size. Split system.
this is a flat roof, I mean, you could, sort of do the geo, you could make it up with photovoltaic cells and you're making, heating with electricity.
That's true, and that's an option as well.
Have you sent somebody up to look at that roof yet?
Yeah.
That's another thing you have to do in the next few weeks, huh?
We were told that was done, what, 5 years
Yeah,
ago?
there's a warranty on it too, but be nice to look at.
You know, these projects, you could go, there's so much you could do, and so where do you stop, where do you start, right? So the roof was done, great, was it done, did they put, some, 4, 5, 6 inches of foam insulation up there? Is that roof insulated, is it not insulated? Is that gonna be another cost?
It is,
Is that something that we can determine right now?
Right.
Is that something that we need to discuss and determine right now? I mean, I don't wanna belabor this
No,
so
but
that
when
they
you-
can
when
go
you-
back and keep
when-
working and we can continue this without them here.
Well, we should, 5 years ago when they did the roof, if they insulated it at that time, we should kinda know that, right?
Should be in whatever documents came with that roof warranty.
The documents, I think it's a little bit under, because unfortunately Connecticut just moved into a new code this past year. So it might be under, but with the existing building code, it could squeeze by.
I'm just curious if there was anything down there, that's all.
Mhm.
Is there any kind of potential for using, solar? We're talking about energy.
certainly, it is, as George was saying, it's a large flat roof.
Yeah.
We can certainly, I don't think an evaluation has been done as to whether or not the structure can actually hold the solar panels. They're not particularly heavy, but they do have an uplift. But we can take a look at that, but it's a large area, so
There's
it's
nothing
certainly.
blocking it, so that we can put them in whatever direction we need to think about it, when you're thinking about it.
Absolutely.
And she's saying that the geothermal is not
No,
really probably.
I just feel like it's a more expensive system, but
And more expensive than solar also.
Well,
I mean more conventional systems, like such as the VRX.
Such as what?
It's just the specific type of system that we've been using lately. It's a more conventional and readily, I don't wanna say readily available, that's not the word.
It's a variable refrigerant flow, which is the Mitsubishi type systems, they call it split systems. They're units where it's very small piping that goes to the individual units in each of the rooms. And it's more of a recirculation system. There is a component to it that adds ventilation to the system, but it's very efficient in that it recirculates and heats and cools the air within the space. So that's been the system of choice lately because of its economy. And it's not only its economy, but it's small, it's small equipment size.
And
The
it's the
unit.
water that goes through the pipes that can either be.
No, it's
the refrigerant,
glycol,
ethylene glycol.
that goes through the lines, and it can heat and cool at the same time, so you can have one room that's being heated, whereas another room is being cooled, so it's a very flexible system. And the units themselves are in the space, they're either in the ductwork, and in the registers, or they're on the walls. So you don't typically have the large condensers that you see on some buildings, you don't need a boiler, frankly. So the condensers in the units themselves are very small and very quiet, they're on the outside. So that is those are the systems that we have seen lately as being most efficient with upfront costs and operating costs. They are an all-electric system, so that's something that you have to balance. That's one thing that makes photovoltaics so attractive. But photovoltaic systems themselves are not free. They're so that can be looked at as an alternate. But that's something that can be looked at as an alternate for the future. We can certainly build in sort of the concept, and you can add that potentially in the future. Whereas geothermal is something that really you would want to do now.
As far as the roof is concerned, though, I'd hate to see us do all these renovations and 1 year down the road find out that the roof needs work and failing. So that's why I mentioned the roof, at least taking a look at it. And you can also look at it with the idea of, when somebody looks at it, assessing whether it can take solar panels at the same time. Sorry for all the questions.
No, that's quite all right. So, were there any questions about the lower layout? So, just a quick rendering of what it might look like for the exterior. Again, bringing out a new entry vestibule with a new awning. There's some coverage for people getting out of their cars. We did take a look at more of a porte cochere type awning that came out where people would drive under. That again, it's all
Cost.
money.
Yeah.
We are showing some additional windows along the back side. This is the back side, but basically using the existing architecture and mimicking the windows that we're keeping. So this is really the sort of basic direction of cleaning up the building, but using the existing architecture.
Is there some shading on the new glass on the upper section? Is that some, I'm looking at those white panels, is that some kind of shading to?
That's you have existing blue panels up there.
Oh, so they're just replacing those?
But you can switch them out, we can put full height, windows
Glass is
if
expensive.
you want, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying more glass, I'm just wondering
Okay, yeah.
about,
I was wondering if there'd be less glass.
yeah,
maybe, you know,
I've played volleyball there and had the sun in my eyes certain times. Anyway,
Yeah, that's basically all open, whatever we put back in, we have control over.
pretty much the same.
Yeah, no, we have control over the window sizes because it's all gonna go.
So, yeah, it's all single pane.
Mhm.
You know, again, sort of along with, you know, adding the windows and cleaning the building up and adding the entry, we added some signage on there just to sort of spruce the building up and let people know that it's no longer the armory, that it's both, you know, the senior center and the recreation department. So it sort of, it enlivens the building a little bit. Yes, sir?
Would it be prudent to put shades in the existing overhead windows, like midday, when the sun is really hot, to draw the shades?
We can take a look at that, absolutely. They'd probably have to be, electric,
One
because
of
they're
your-
so high. You're
One of
talking
your
about-
libraries that we saw had that problem. I forget which one.
You know, we went to a lot of places, especially for the library, and a lot of it was glass.
Yeah,
And one thing that I noticed is they all had shades afterward, because there was too much glass.
yeah.
so what's direction we're
Right.
looking at here? Is that south, east, west?
Yes,
West.
wax.
So you get the,
West,
east
east,
side.
Yeah, that's,
I would go as far as, you know, cut that glass down.
Mm.
You know, maybe cut the lower part of it down, keep some of the upper, you know, keep the first 4 panes, and again, if you're looking at cost savings, it still lets the natural light into the building and keep the windows away from the roof and snow.
Heat loss.
And 6. Cause I don't see,
Pardon?
cause I don't see the, next one or 2 or whatever.
And we can look at putting some, electric operated shades on the windows too, if you.
Right now, they're operable with that, pulley system, if you recall. Do you see that as, do you want that to remain? Like, would you want that same type of system?
that's
Do you want
there
those
now.
upper windows?
To open?
Yeah,
Well, back to, we got an air conditioner, now if you're air conditioning, you wouldn't want them to open. I don't know if that ever does anything, does it, up there? Having those windows
well, when the
open?
windows come out, that system will go out, but do you want a similar system to go back in?
I would
I
say
don't know,
no.
I wouldn't think
Yeah,
so.
okay, I would say no.
I would say no.
I've never seen them open, and
Okay.
I've been involved with that building since the
I think
70s.
because they didn't open. They were made to open, but I think they were all rusted in.
painted
Ship
shop.
sail.
And if you
We're
opened
also
it, you couldn't
planning to
close it.
take off, the entry at the existing entrance. Right now, it's really, creating some damage to your existing building, the wall. There's a lot of leaking right here at this entry because of that. So we wanna take that off and not put anything back.
Where was that?
It's it's
Oh, the front door.
your
Right side.
existing
Oh,
entry
oh,
right
right,
here.
the
It's
front.
not a script
Yeah.
entry.
With the three doors together out.
Correct.
Mhm. And then so there's some areas, that you just have like T11 on the building. Are you guys fine with
Yes.
that?
Yes,
Can we,
Probably.
we're gonna probably update that, or
okay.
fix that out, because
That's
there's just
probably
a
what's
lot of
leaking.
water damage
That's
on the
probably where it's
underside of
leaking
this
from.
soffit,
Yeah.
all around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mary, is this something you can email me?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Now, if I remember right, there was leakage on the interior of the front of the basketball court, because you could see it coming through the wall. Is that another area that you looked
I
at?
didn't see that.
Which
Which side
Which
is
front?
If you walk in the existing front door and you go into the basketball court and you turned around, it would be that upper right wall. There was a lot of water damage, I remember seeing.
Yeah, there's a lot more brickwork than just this wall. Everyone can see the damage on this wall when you're there.
Yeah,
There's a lot more repointing that needs to happen
okay,
around the entire
right,
building.
all right.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's part of the project is to,
This project is growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's not as easy as just sort of saying, let's use an existing building, for something. The existing building has to be modified and brought together, so.
Remember when we did the study on this building?
Yeah, I remember.
I don't know, my feeling is that when you remodel something, it costs more than building new, so. Are you gonna have, I guess the other I don't know about this brick, you're talking about leaking around the brick, I wonder if the brick needs to be sealed?
Well, that's what's,
I think
If
it
it's
needs to just
absorbing
be
water, because I've
repointed. They'll
seen
take
that a
out the
lot.
grout and regrout it.
Yeah, sometimes the brick itself absorbs so much water,
Really?
the reaction just goes right through. Big fireplaces, I've seen that a lot with big fireplace, big chimneys where the red brick, because it's not fired maybe hot enough, it absorbs a lot of water, and then it just starts leaking into the house, and you wonder where the water's coming from. Yeah.
We haven't seen that too much, it's usually more of a repointing and rewatering issue. What are we looking at?
water leakage.
Oh.
Yeah, this place is, that's Denise. She's got it on top of her copy machine.
And on top of the other part, going to the window.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Moving along.
Okay, so,
Mhm.
any other questions right now or concerns on the artwork? We will take all of this back, we partner a lot. We'll take all this back and work on it and bring it back. Looking at the town hall, just to refresh your memory, we haven't done too much additional on the town hall. The town hall has, we haven't updated the renderings, they are basically what you saw a couple of months ago. One thing though, that we did make some minor modifications to the vault space. I'll let Mallory talk about this a little bit. I'm gonna start on the second floor. Because the vault is on the second floor, there are pretty stringent restrictions for the vault. It has to be 6-hour walls, they're basically 12-inch concrete walls. You do have a couple of vaults here that are on upper levels, but all of that load has to be transferred, obviously, to the ground. So what we've done is, since the prior plans, we've shifted the vault to the corner, to this exterior corner, so that we've got that nice corner to utilize to bring the foundations down.
So the mayor's office is gone.
That's right.
No, sorry, I since rotated this,
We put them on the vestibule.
these plans have actually come a long way, but you could, the layers have been stripped for you guys to not worry about. But this has been rotated, if you can imagine, so this is the entry that you guys used to see it like portrait, now it's just landscape, so there's really no change. It's just, it fits better on the page, for documentation. But as straight inside, so the mayor's up here in this corner. We're not thrilled about using a corner and windows, but it will save you a lot of money, with structure. And so that goes straight down, it goes through the, library. Right here is this thick wall, thick wall, thick wall. So it doesn't really pierce the library. Before, if you remember, it was kinda like here, and we would've had to deal with a lot of beams and structure. And it goes straight down into the basement here.
So
What's in
first
the-
floor,
So it doesn't obstruct.
there was the
Lower
first
level.
floor.
The lower level, the first floor.
Yeah,
But as far as the library, what is it, what's housed in that space in the library?
It was previously a storage, and it's still a storage. It got about 2 feet wider.
Oh, okay.
So before this counter used to be on this side of the wall, but now we pulled it to the front. It's still, oversized compared to the original, a smidge oversized compared to the original program apartment.
So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, you've got a vault on the first floor as well as on the second floor.
Mhm.
And the
Now, you
lower-
may not spend the money on
Finishing
on
the
the
vault.
finishes and the doors, the required doors for the vault on that first floor, but all of that weight has to be transferred down anyway, it's just,
So it could be retrofitted into another vault type,
yes,
or, yeah.
Same thing on the first floor, right?
right, on the lower level.
The lower level, we actually are using it as a second vault for the building department, fire marshal, and then just small excess vault for whoever
Great.
else needs to throw something.
Great idea,
Yeah.
great idea.
Yeah.
Um,
The Historical Society
What
might
about-
like to use them, yeah, to
Well,
protect
they're
some
doing,
goods.
they're doing upper and lower here now.
So other than that, those plans haven't changed, and, as Mallory said, there's a lot of other information that's on the plans that has been stripped for presentation purposes. So now we're back to the schedule, which is
Okay.
our last slide.
Yeah.
So again, this schedule was aiming towards the end of June to sort of have have everything ready. I think that you tell us, there may be a little bit of wiggle room in there if there's, other in-depth questions that we have. I guess we looked at the town schedule and didn't see necessarily any Board of Finance or Selectmen scheduled for July. But that doesn't mean that.
We only have one meeting in July. So
Mr.
it's
Chairman,
not
when does
on-
this have to be
It's not
presented
the
to
first or third,
selectmen?
it's,
That's what they're talking about right now.
I think at the last meeting, we were seeing if they could be combined, is that true? Like, can that happen?
I'm sure we
To
can,
present them.
we can look
At the
at
same
doing a
time.
joint
Right.
meeting.
That's a good.
We can look
That
at
would
doing
save a
joint
lot of
meeting.
time and heartache if the Board of Selectmen will agree to it. Do it all
We're
over
pretty,
again.
we're pretty flexible now.
Aren't we having a dual meeting on May first?
Yeah, that's nothing to do with that, though.
No?
No, I don't know. You got the whole summer, the argument, the bad part of it is a lot of people are away on vacation, but it gives us the summer to work with the project.
Well, what I found is never a perfect time.
No, there never is.
Either the snowbirds are gone, or,
Yeah, that's right. I don't know, anybody see anything wrong with the schedule? I don't see anything wrong with it.
Well, we've been working with you for a while now.
Yeah,
So I'd like to kick up some momentum and get this thing.
yeah, this is gonna be a little intense there as summer goes on. That we have another agenda item later on to talk about doing something with it. That's only our, we talked about having a subcommittee that helps market, or let's say public relations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we did put the stars in there for the duck race
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
and the river
Car
fire,
show.
river fire display.
Yeah, the car show is a good one.
We thought that those were good opportunities.
First Friday, those kind of things.
No?
I thought you were, the duck, when you said the duck race, I thought you were. Thought he was a townie? Yeah.
Almost. Any other questions?
Any, I know this is not a place for public comment, but they'll be going to, anybody from either Aspenock or library or Commission on Aging have any questions? Huh? No, nothing.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
Yeah, okay. Now, you just got more work to do.
Excellent. Excellent,
Thank you very much.
thank you. So we'll get back.
Should we take a 5-minute recess so they can move their equipment and anybody wants to take a bathroom break? Motion? Do we need a motion to do that?
Hang on, it's coming in.
We'll make a motion, to take a break, 5-minute break.
Second. All in favor?
I was at the library last night.
Yeah, that was really nice.
this?
Yeah.
That's across the hall.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, because you haven't met yet.
No.
That was every night
No,
this
not at
week.
all.
Let me know.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
You haven't missed anything. Yep.
That's why we didn't see you at Stitches on
Monday, I think that was enough. This has been a week of, I had no meetings on Monday, starting Monday, and I haven't been home. It's been miserable.
I'll see you Monday.
And I know, that's the catch. That's right. I'm working and I've been out all week, so.
Yeah, I've been on the road. I mean, certainly, I'm so sorry. You said by some. You said by some, yeah. I really don't. I don't have sets. And I think I certainly don't think we should bring that up. But I will go with whatever the majority says. Yeah, I think we have bigger fish to fry. And you had said by September. In September, I might have a different business. Yeah, I don't think it should be, I mean, I feel like, I don't disagree, but I also feel like it's really a matter of priorities. And I see what you're saying.
And I didn't go to the meeting.
You know, there's view, it's not this view, there's a lot of questions that's still there.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Bye.
See you.
Good night. No one's talking to
I disagree with you.
or we're not talking to them.
Some of us said good night.
Oh.
That's really. I'd like to read some.
The whole thing is weird.
I feel like you guys gone.
I'm more interested in that.
I feel like I joined.
To me, that's what that's more challenging. Well, and I also feel like we do too. Whatever, I will send you whatever the group decides. I will support them. Good night there.
Did you watch Scott General today?
Yeah, I saw the first part of the news.
I just wasn't sure.
Something similar to what something that Karen Hargreaves,
And I think that there's so much to talk about Monday, I don't
He's waiting for zoning approval to continue this hearing.
The Dutch Bank and there's a building. Yep, and Daily Printers.
So it's May, whatever, Wednesday, middle of May.
They can, the annual town meeting.
They might not.
he's got no plans for the lots right now. Gotta get them graded level first. On the other side though, I don't see what the problem is. He's busy, he's building spec houses himself, he's up in Capitola Road in top of it. Spec house.
Good luck. Tough. The appraisal.
I was an empty space over there.
Norm didn't wanna join us, I don't think, so.
They had that thing going on. They don't want to sit through the interesting part of the meeting. Are we ready to move on?
We just made a motion to reconvene.
Okay, I make a motion, we reconvene.
Second.
All in favor of the motion to reconvene, signify by aye. All right, next item that we skipped over was the approval of the minutes. Denise sent out, the minutes of the two meetings, March 23rd and March 30th. First of all, 3A, March 23rd. Could I have a motion on the regular meeting on March 23rd, a motion?
Motion to accept it.
Any comments on the corrections, additions? Any discussion at all on those minutes? All right, all in favor of accepting the minutes of the 23rd as presented, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
3B, March 30th, the special meeting. That's the meeting where we met with J&D. Have a motion on that one, please?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the minutes of the, of March 30th? Any questions on that, and that, I'd like to, ask, I believe, Mary, you did the minutes on this meeting? Is that correct? The way I remembered it, we asked, J&D to reverse the plan and get us an estimate on what it would cost to put in a concrete arch bridge across the Little River with a walkway on it.
I didn't recall that we had given them the specific task of, there was discussion on whether or not we wanted to go forward with and that be part of the overall costing, but there was their contract for costing the whole project as part of the agenda, and that wasn't moved on as well. So I summarized the information that we had.
I don't know, is that what the committee?
I thought Janet said something about she would look into.
She did say she would look into it,
Right.
but there was no necessarily a formal direction on cost, having them proceed with, expending funds to cost this project out. That's why their contract for that is on this agenda as well.
So the long discussion we had, going back to our recommendation, which has never been brought back to us, that was the original plan that Messier did, that went to Recreation, they approved it, went to the Board of Selectmen, and they approved it. We haven't seen anything from anybody since then.
Mr. Chairman, is J&D going to sit down with us and at least get some general direction from us about what we've been doing and planning all of this time?
I believe the last session, that's what they were trying to garner, is what direction and path that this group was looking for. I didn't specifically ask them to come back to this meeting, because I did put them on hold, because I didn't get a general sense from this committee that you wanted to task them with costing and start through that process. So based on the conversation that happened at the last meeting, that's why I put that contract back on this agenda for you to review and decide if, you know, we're going to move forward with having them cost whatever configuration of this, and we can have them come back and have you be able to give them, this is what we're looking for you to specifically maybe cost these alternatives, and that kind of direction. But
One other question, are they, J&D, responsible to Parks and Recreation?
the field layout, the field layout and the field configuration, my understanding is the Fields Committee and the Recreation, decision. That's my understanding.
The Fields Committee has never met.
That's why we also are looking at the joint meeting as well,
Yeah,
for
I'm
all
just
of these
surprised.
commissions to get together and get back on the same page, really.
Exactly, and I'm just surprised with all the meetings we had and with Owen being here and Willie being here on a number of occasions, that they never approached us for our opinion and direction. After
I think-
working on this for all this time.
But I think that's what the Fields Committee was put together for, separate from this, so that the Fields Committee could come back and tell the board. Now, maybe I'm wrong with that, because I haven't been to some of the meetings, but that's what I
Don't you think they
thought
would
that
have
was
come here
part.
first before they gave direction?
I-
Being that we've been working on it all this time, and
I think that's why it's important that we all get together on Monday, because I think there's, a lot of things that are not quite clear. And I think getting together on Monday is gonna nail that all out, because we always sit down, we always are, a little gray areas, and people are feeling that their toes are getting stepped on, so hopefully after Monday, we'll all know who does what where. And I don't think anything was done in malice. I think it was just done to try to get things expedited after Doug's passing. And maybe some people have felt offended by that, but I don't think there was any malice that came about with it. Maybe some miscommunication. That's how I feel.
I think if the last meeting that we had, the special meeting when J&D was here, if the purpose for them being here was to get direction from us, so they could hear from us what it is that we're looking for, we spent an awful lot of time talking about the bridge as a focal point of the entire
Absolutely,
project, so
absolutely.
I think
And they have
our
taken,
work, the minutes need to reflect that we're still on board with this bridge, right?
and I believe J&D definitely
It goes back a long way.
has that information in there.
It's in the letter they sent to.
Yeah, J&D is definitely including that in their overall, but they have not been tasked as of yet to go out and actually start costing this project and costing the various alternatives of the different types of bridges that we were discussing at that meeting. And part of that last meeting was for them to also, I recognized in coming in kind of late in this game, that there had been some disconnection in that communication cycle. And so you hadn't seen or had been presented with the conceptual design that J&D had prepared. So it was also the opportunity for them to bring that to you and then get feedback on that design, and then figure out where you were looking for changes to be made as well.
Yeah, just so the committee understands, I did a little math on this, and 685,000 or whatever yards that they've estimated is in there, and this is the new numbers from J&D. And just, if there's only 600,000 yards in there, and we go out onto Sabin Street, which that plan that J&D brought in shows, at 75,000 truck trips down Sabin Street.
How many?
75,000 truck trips down Sabin Street.
But I don't think that they were continuing with that same design concept after listening to your
Right.
meeting. So I think that that's, what they showed you for conceptual design was just that, a conceptual design.
So we lost the whole month waiting for them to do what?
No, I was waiting for direction from you for them to start costing the project.
Wait a minute, we're here tonight to pay bills for J&D to do work that
Getting up,
tasked them
we
to do.
never had anything to do with them until they were here last month, first time we ever seen them.
I understand.
Actually, I think the task was from Willie Bliskett, because that's who the letter was sent
I
to,
understand,
right?
I understand, yep,
And then he sent those bills to us.
correct.
But I see on the second page of J&D that the bridge was a construction contract, need further direction from town as to the design, vehicle, and number of lanes. There was a lot of discussion on that, but they were never attached to it.
Correct, that was the original contract that they submitted last, meeting to you,
Right.
which they got they got the understanding that you were wanting to look at a prefab,
Right.
2-lane concrete bridge with pedestrian crossing, but, we didn't actually task them with, okay, please go cost this out. And I didn't get a general consensus feeling on that, and I didn't want to assume that that's the direction that this group wanted to go in at that point. I really wanted to have the direct conversation because of the lack of, and breakdown of communication that happened prior to this.
Right.
So if I delayed it, I apologize. I just really wanted to make sure that this group, that we were in the same consensus after that meeting. That's,
As far as the bridge goes, my recollection is that Janet suggested that she would look into just getting, an idea what.
Well, it's a couple phone calls.
And we're not looking for like engineering or anything,
No,
just
just-
call up a company and say, what is a 30-foot, by 30-foot, whatever a bridge costs, yeah?
but that was gonna be part of the overall costing contract that she was gonna be doing, and the overall costing of the project.
Yeah. And I just don't view it as a big thing, I mean, if I knew specifically what we were looking at, I could go
Well,
online and find out just as well as she could, right?
The big thing is, we really are getting to be under the gun now. Because this is part of that whole timeline
It's
that,
the key.
that we just talked about. You know, that special meeting was on March 30th. It's now the end of April. So we've just lost another month, knowing that the bridge, that we want the bridge to be the focal point. We want it to be the entrance, we want it to be the exit. We just lost another month. I don't know how many more weeks and months we can afford to lose.
Why don't we just do what we need to do right now, instead of beating a dead horse
Okay,
and
so-
getting, let's move
Well,
forward.
So,
we
so
can
we
get
go to Monday's meeting and we
Mhm.
hash out whose
Mhm.
turf this is and whatever. We're gonna wait till next month to do something with
I
J&D?
believe Mary's asking for us to do give her some direction tonight, am I not am I not understanding that, so?
Correct, when we
Yeah,
got down
no.
in that part of the agenda, I understand your
Yeah,
minute
right now we're still on the
section.
minutes, so,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
I
we
was-
should
yes,
figure
that's
out
fine.
if we're gonna accept the minutes or not accept them, or if we need revisions to the minutes. And then we
That's
can,
why we're,
so
discussing
then we
it.
can move on to see what Mary's asking us to do, so that we can get this moving and give her directions, so we're not waiting until Monday, or the next meeting.
Well, I mean, to move this along, someone has to make a suggestion as to what those revisions, or what you think the revisions to these minutes should be.
Alan, what would you like to see?
Well, I thought we asked them to give us a new plan showing the reverse, that the bridge was.
That's how I remember it too. We had a very lengthy conversation about that bridge. I'm sure everybody who was at that meeting remembers it, because it was upfront.
There's some other issues with the plan, but again, and they're not strictly recreation issues. It goes back to the Fields Committee. So now, whatever comes out of Monday, you need the Fields Committee to meet. But back up even further than this. If there's no gravel in there, I mean, we haven't even tested it yet. We don't know how much is in it.
Let's finish the minutes.
Yeah,
Okay,
oh, that's right, that's
So,
right.
what, what is it that you want Mary to change about the minutes, so that way we can get beyond and get to some other discussion, cause we're,
Yeah, all that is a separate discussion. We need to determine whether or not the minutes are correct or incorrect and how you wanna amend them.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought we were asking of them. I expected to see them here tonight with a new plan.
Well, I mean, I don't know how that really relates to, you know, again, the minutes are very, in terms of rules of order here, I guess. I
Mhm.
mean, the minutes are the minutes. What was conducted during that meeting, whatever was said during that meeting, are the minutes. And if there's something that was said other than what was written on these pages, then you add that as a correction, and we go and vote to approve or disapprove the minutes, but we have to move on with the minutes, and then we can discuss the other issue of whether or not we got walked over a little bit maybe on J&D and
Yeah.
not saying stuff. I mean, to me, that's a separate issue from the minutes. We just need,
Well, that's
Again,
right, but, you know, we need, I mean, it's not the chair's position to make suggestions on changes in the minutes, but, you know, we've all had the discussion and see what people remember, and then somebody make an amendment, and we'll make a vote on it.
I guess my feeling is that this is really not, you know, what's written is good enough. And our issues are other issues that we could bring up in either in this meeting or in the meeting with the Board of Selectmen on May 1st. So I guess I would, I don't know if I would motion to, end the discussion and move on to the vote. And then if you wanna talk about this other stuff, we'll talk about this other stuff.
Okay?
Because it's not gonna affect, whether or not we change this, it's not gonna affect anything in the minutes. The minutes are just, here they are, it's just a piece of paper, whoever wants to read what went on in the last meeting, but, to continue our conversations as to how we wanna, deal with J&D, if we wanna deal with J&D, how we feel about, the plan, how we feel, whatever, that's a whole nother deal.
Well, I'll put my 2 cents in and I don't say anything more, but I felt like we gave them a directive and they haven't followed through on the directive, and if we're gonna pay them later, then we should be noted that they didn't do what they were asked to do.
Okay, you note that. You don't feel that, you feel that they should have, they should have been here and reflect that in the minutes.
But they haven't been officially directed to change the plan yet, at this time.
Correct, that was my understanding, and I specifically had a conversation with J&D. She had said her understanding coming out of that meeting was that she was at a halting point until she had further direction. I agreed with her and told her that, I was gonna have this contract on this coming agenda as well, for you to consider whether or not we were moving forward with them before they started doing additional expenditures. And I purposefully had told them I agreed with that.
Well, and in fairness to them, we tabled the paying of that bill, so I mean, in fairness to them,
Right,
I think we're just gonna move on here. I don't wanna be in a riot, so.
Okay, we wanna move the motion, you wanna vote on it the way
Well,
it's
does anyone wanna make a
what's
amendment
the
to the
motion that
motion?
we have on the floor?
to accept the minutes as presented.
As presented.
Vice
Correct.
Chairman Maury made a motion to approve the minutes
Yeah.
as presented. Member Ed Perrin seconded the motion.
You wanna vote on that motion?
Now's the time to determine whether you wanna amend it. Right?
I think it's an all in favor, and if it either fails or it goes forward.
That's correct.
Okay.
So we all have to vote.
Yeah.
Right.
All in favor of the motion as presented signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
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 I abstain, I was there.
Okay, it passes, so we move on.
This is a rule of order, you can't vote on that.
Yeah, in case of,
Just a
Case of a
tie,
tie,
just a
yeah.
tie.
So we're into old business agenda item C. And I guess you, by the sounds, you have some information for us, Mary.
Like we discussed, not a whole lot of new information. There is the contract that, J&D prepared to, start doing the budgetary cost estimates as well as the, revenue estimates for the project. And, looking at the design, the bridge design and any necessary permitting, for that project, as well as any, design on the east side of, the river as well. There would be, they wanna, in order to be able to get, a more solid number, she is gonna be reaching out to, obviously bridge construction, to be able to get a better, a solid number on that. So, I wanna be able to task them with, let's move forward, but I wanted to make sure that that this group is wanting that direction to happen.
So what's our, at this point, what's our obligation to them?
You have, two bills in the back, and the second bill that we received really got through last month's meeting and the presentation that they did. That's what we've, what we have, tasked them with thus far. This contract, was to get us through to be able to get to referendum with costing.
And that includes the bridge crossing?
Yes,
There's some, they were asking for more information, so that she's got hours figured in as to what that's gonna take her to do? or-
correct, and that's why you'll see the cost estimate has a range between 5,000 and 7,000, to be able to handle if she needs to do additional around the bridge. And then, just general consulting for coordinating, with Deep and, the town attorney and that type of stuff for more technical information.
So this will all be accomplished within the $39,000 original appropriation?
Yes, so the top end of this contract is $10,000 on the, there's currently, still available after both invoices are paid, there would be, there's almost 20,000. So there would be a remaining balance of about 9,800 after completing that task.
And what is left in the account?
Currently, right now, there is, I have, the page that you have in your,
19,000.
848.
And she's saying there's only 9,000 of that she needs to finish it?
10,000, if you add up the two, between the top end of 7,000, say she were to expend the full 7,000, plus a full 3,000 if it maxed out everything.
Yeah.
The top end of the contract is 10,000, so there would be 9,800 remaining.
Remaining,
Plus the unpaid bills, or? is
That's
that-
after deducting the unpaid bills.
okay. And that encompasses everything except the structural engineering that was in the original bid that Messier did, right? Correct?
Right, obviously, the actual structural engineering would happen would be part of the cost that she would present.
As the bridge.
And that would be part of the bridge costs, that would be part of the overall project costs.
So, my understanding is that, just like Messier and the other people that bid on this, Woodstock Avenue is in play, that's part of this.
Currently, right now, we're only looking at Sabin Street. Woodstock Avenue is not,
that was part
hasn't
of-
been part of, it's not included in her price estimations here as far as clearing and graveling.
Wow.
Woodstock Avenue, when I haven't been, tasked with including Woodstock Avenue.
She received all the CAD information on Woodstock Avenue from Messier, because Messier prepared that, because that was part of his charge.
And I know that I have been, they've relayed conversations, not just J&D, but, Willie and others have relayed conversations that they had had with Deep, that there was concern over Woodstock Avenue. I have to request J&D to see if she can send me that, if they had any of that in writing when they met with Deep and, talked about it, but, so I don't know, I have to kind of dig back into that to figure out when Woodstock Avenue kind of, got put on the back burner for this, to say, well, if, you know, our primary focus was Sabin Street and getting that athletic complex, and then Woodstock Avenue was a, you know, a future. If we wanted to continue to expand that athletic complex, then we would, you know, bridge out and look at it as a future project and not necessarily an immediate project.
See, we weren't part of that process with the DEEP.
Right.
And that whole conversation, I hope, was memorialized in writing somewhere, and not just Dave Steiger telling Janet what they wanted over there, and something about the solar and whatever. There was what Doug was working on, and what we were privy to, was that he was ready to offer them substitute land, in fact 2 acres for 1, to get that away from them completely. The idea, and we've talked about it here, is to include that in the project, especially when you're putting in the cost of that bridge, that you need that revenue off that site to create that, and make that site usable for either recreation or walking or whatever else you're gonna do with it. It's completely unusable the way it is now. And to have all that extra topsoil coming off of Sabin Street, that you could reclaim that, because there's nothing there left on that site. To lose that opportunity and the ability to put that burden on the contractor because of taking the gravel off both sites, the town would be foolish not to pursue those 2 at the same time. So
No,
here
we
we
can
are,
pursue-
backing up again, backing this whole thing up again, and now all of a sudden $39,000 isn't enough. Or if you're asking Janet to go over and do the work on Woodstock Avenue, it's not in the $39,000 that she's showing.
Well, this is the contract for what she's proposed right now for Sabin Street's 10,000.
Yep.
There's still 9,800 left in that 39,000,
Okay, so I guess.
I mean, I could find out from her what the additional cost would be if we were
It's
to
just a grading.
add the Woodstock Avenue as an alternate, as, you know, as additional, so that way we would be able to look at the, you know, independently. So if the decision was that you just wanted to focus on Sabin Street, the costing for Sabin Street could be identified individually from Woodstock Avenue. We could definitely
Well-
task them to look at that.
What I know of the site, and this is back memory when Willie and I tested it years ago, there's some material that's not saleable that's on the side towards the Woodstock side of the Sabin Street piece. So you're not gonna get 685,000 yards out of there. And so to pay for the bridge, that's gonna be expensive, and then all the things that on the wish list, from recreation to doing that complex, including lights, you're gonna need every ounce that you can find, and I don't think you're gonna wanna put this along with, you know, trying to find some extra money for this project to go along with the 2 that we just heard a few minutes ago, because it's not gonna come from the voters, it's not.
I did speak to Attorney Sainage as to if we would need to go to referendum with full cost on this, and then with the communication that we anticipate revenue. And it was his opinion that we would need to go to the voters with full cost of the total project, and with the communication that we anticipate alternate revenue, and then not have to borrow, but we would need to go out for full borrowing cost.
Did you ask them if we negotiated a contractor to do the entire project and apply the money that's come in as revenue towards actually purchasing what Willie and Recreation would direct them to do as far as on the site? So in other words, the town wouldn't expend the money, the town wouldn't take the money, and it would be all done with accounting between you and the contractor.
we don't necessarily have an agreement with an individual contractor.
No, you
So-
have to strike that.
St. Ange really felt that the full cost of the project needed to go to the voters,
Mhm.
and the voters had to vote on the full cost of the contract, the full cost of the project. We can communicate that we anticipate X dollars of revenue in order to be able to offset that, and maybe we can offset the full amount with revenue from gravel sales, and that's our communication, but it was his opinion that the full dollar value of the project would need to go to referendum.
In terms of doing due diligence, would we put that out to bid prior to the referendum?
Bid for what?
The gravel.
Oh,
No.
I would think you're going, if you expect to pass this, you better have that all locked up long before the referendum. Otherwise, this thing's going down in flames.
That would be a decision for the Board of Selectmen to make as to whether or not they're gonna do an RFP or whether or not, they would look to extend an existing gravel contract. But that would be on the Board of Selectmen's purview to, make that determination. St. Ange has recommended a number of times that if we go the direction of, extending an existing, gravel contract, that, request for, directly contracting should go to a town meeting vote, to bypass the existing purchasing
Yeah,
ordinance.
this is a large, well, to me, it's a lot of gravel, I don't know about you, but, yeah. I mean, it's something that, you have to do your due diligence and make sure you're doing it properly to, protect the town. So are we, Alan, are you also concerned about the layout of this, is that?
Yeah, the layout is, back to the Fields Committee, there's some time gotta be spent with the Fields Committee. The biggest consideration I have, and I never got to go in front of this Fields Committee, and I was representing this committee to Fields, and asked by Recreation to get two people from WPTP and Nikon, which I gave them the names. So I was there representing now, and no meeting was ever held, but the thing that I wanted to bring across to ask Recreation, would we be better off to move that Little League field that's there down to Murphy, where, we're taking the hardball field out of there because of the problems with the Armory, now gonna be the senior center. So that area there could be the Little League field, and whatever money we wanna spend for lighting, we'd spend it in a different place, and all the Little League fields will be there, softball and 2 Little League fields will all be in one place, then the parents can be there, and the concession stand could serve all
So
3.
you're talking about taking the Little League field and the softball field out of this?
No, the softball field's high school softball.
Okay.
That's the other thing that never got involved with the Fields Committee, was the people from the school. Whether it's Bill Hull or athletic director or whatever, we should have their input on that. And see, that if you turn that whole thing around, the idea was to put softball and baseball field in first, so that the school had fields that they could use early on, so that if you're doing that project from the bridge over, you could reclaim and build those fields right away.
So it's not in a
So you can
logical,
stop, yeah,
logical place for.
the other fields, those are for, young recreation, and it's just fields, they can go do that in another town, because those organizations serve 4 and 5 towns.
Well, since I've gotten on this committee, our charge has certainly grown.
Yeah. Ed just said
More,
the same thing.
more than, it's, I'm terribly interested at times, so, again, to me, this is a recreation
It is.
thing, and,
It is.
and it's gonna be, as far as how it gets done, I mean, in terms of a logical order, maybe that needs, needs massaging as to how you do that, but I'm not really sure I wanna be involved in that, so, I can see us being involved in the, community center and the library and the town hall, but now we're doing ball fields and,
Well,
what are we doing next, I mean?
as you know, we have no town hall unless we have athletic fields somewhere else, and that's where this I mean, this whole thing was born, this whole project was born in this committee, all around Saban Street. If this Saban Street wasn't there,
It started with the Armory.
well, the Armory was there, and we were talking to the library people, and we were talking about.
I would disagree with that, and maybe it was born, maybe that's the way, the direction you guys wanted to bring it, but my time on this committee is, the first thing we did was looked at a bunch of sites, and one of the sites that
Yeah,
we looked
oh, yeah.
at was a site that they're currently building on, where Northeast
Yeah,
Carpet
oh,
is, and that would have
yeah.
been a perfectly fine site for the town hall. You know, but, this one-stop shopping concept has come in, and we've dedicated ourselves to this, but, it's the direction we chose to go.
Yeah, we looked at a lot of places, think about it, we were at Belding's, we were over at,
Over here, next door.
next door to Provincial House.
Even the shopping center, I
Yep.
mean, the parking lot.
So where do we go from here? Where are we at? I
Well,
mean,
we.
where are we at in the agenda, I guess is my point. 'Cause
We're
we
still-
could be here
we're
all night
still-
reminiscing, and I don't mean to be bitchy about it, but
Sounds like a lady hasn't eaten yet.
exactly. And I'm walking home, so, or running home, so.
We're still on, old business agenda item C. So,
So are we wanting to have J and D start moving forward with the process of costing? And
think
the
we have-
process of meeting to be able to start getting additional feedback that they might need from the various committees in order to accomplish that?
You're gonna need that to go forward to the town.
I do.
My
And-
question, Larry, is, do we have the authority to tell them to go forward, or does it have to come from the selectmen?
That's a good question.
I think we can make a recommendation, at least do that,
it's
so
our
that
budget,
way
it's our budget.
we can, I would at least make a recommendation, because if it's not in this board's purview, at least Monday, it can be the recommendation. We've got everything in
Who are we
place.
meeting with on Monday? It's a joint meeting.
It is the selectmen, it's,
The Commission on Aging, this group,
Recreation.
and the
And
recreation.
And recreation,
Yeah.
so
But
we
it's
can
not-
work out and resolve some of the issues.
Exactly, it's to
Exactly.
get everybody in the same room
And
and
so
talk
we
this
gotta
over.
address it to recreation, who's
You-
moving and which
You
part.
better start it at 4 o'clock and not 6 o'clock.
so
My choice.
I'm gonna make a motion that we move forth with them costing. That way we can get this
I
thing,
Well-
second that.
okay,
J and D.
yes.
And we talking about Woodstock Avenue too?
I don't,
Because that was part of the original charge.
Is that part of Esther's
I
contract?
think
Yes, it was.
it's part of our intent to cover the costs
Sure.
of developing of the field.
Oh, absolutely.
but I believe, and this came, what I recall from Doug prior to his passing was that there was a possibility if we did put anything or touch that, the whole project may fail. We can certainly cost it, but that was what I was led to believe that DEEP had said. So I think that's why, and I could be wrong, I could have my facts incorrect, we'd have to go back. Because DEEP was very strong that they did not want that portion touched. That's what I recall.
We heard this.
So,
I heard that they didn't want it used for solar,
Right,
Yes.
that's what I
Yes,
remember.
I heard that.
but it was fine for recreation.
Right.
but they don't want it, from what I understand, they don't want it touched, so
They don't want it touched, so we cannot
Tony-
Well,
excavate gravel, we cannot.
that's what I understood.
Tony's-
However,
Tony's word was regrading. Let's look at regrading it, and that's what we're doing, just leveling it off, just dropping it down.
I can
so,
certainly, if you decide to move forward with that motion, I can certainly, have J and D let me know whether or not, costing out the Woodstock Avenue as a, and I'm assuming you're just looking for an open field,
Yes.
right? I mean, you're not looking at athletic fields on that, so it's an open field, really. If that would drastic, I don't think it's gonna really do a whole lot of change to this. She may end up being at the closer end of $10,000 rather than being able to be slightly under, but I can find out if it's gonna make any major change on that.
The recommendation that we made originally that was accepted was that the contractor that took the gravel would build the fields. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what Messier had on the plans, that's what went to recreation, and that's what went to the Board of Selectmen and was accepted. So as far as I'm concerned, we're looking for the same thing from J and D. And first of all, if they can't stay within the 39,000 to do Woodstock included in it, I think we have to revisit it.
Well, I don't think that they would need another 10,000 to, the costing out of Woodstock Avenue is nowhere near the, difficulty of costing out the components on Sabin Street. I mean, it's
Just
basically
regrade.
just, yeah, so I mean, I don't think that you're gonna really find that they're gonna have much of a difference in, you know, adding a lot of price to
But I think
to
that's the
their
question.
cost.
I think that's the question we need to ask first, you know, and then go into whether we wanna get them costing this and that. I mean, we waited a month to wait a few days. Maybe you can get an answer by Monday on that, can't you?
But you're
Should
not
I
gonna
just
be in a
amend my
position-
motion to include that?
Go right ahead.
All right, so that I've amended that,
Second motion.
thank you.
All right, we talked it to death. All in favor of the motion?
Just one other comment.
Hurry up.
There's
I'm
always
reminding you.
someone.
And well, and the comment is just this, you know, if there's not enough money out of this 39,000, then I gotta question whether or not Messier provided us with enough information for the money we gave them. And that's what sort of ticked me off.
Wait a minute.
So,
So-
you know,
Wait a minute. We're back way up there because I'm gonna go to bat for these guys. They were told, when Messier backed out of this project.
yeah. See, I have no,
Right.
I'm not privy to any of
This
that.
This is what I know, and I'm getting, you know, bits and pieces
Well,
from
wait a
both
minute.
sides.
Order, just to keep in order,
Yep.
is that a different discussion than it is on just the motion on the floor to get this moving forward? I just don't, as a matter of fact.
I think it
the
has
only
a lot
way-
of bearing on it.
The only way it relates to the motion is the total cost of what J&D has left to spend.
Yeah.
And I don't foresee that we would really exceed much over the 10,000 in order for them to accomplish.
So to me, it's just a comment that, you know, that we should have all this done for the money that we've appropriated, for the money that was originally contracted out. And, you know, I'm not looking to bring up a can of worms. I think we, you know, enough said, I think we move on to the vote.
In my opinion, if we'd have left it alone, that we'd have had a bunch of money left over, because they were on the hook to do it for 15.5, and now we're gonna spend 39,000 and we might not get it done. Anyway, all those in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, new business? Hearing none, let's talk about invoices. They've been included in our packet, and the ones you're looking to be paid are the J&D ones, right, Mary?
There's one for LLB for 5,000, that was submitted on, April 7th. It's part of the, Armory. It's for a lot of the work that they've just recently done on the Armory to get it ready for pricing. So that would be the first one.
That's the money that we went back to the Board of Finance and got separate from the 39,000?
Correct, that's 40,000. You'll see a front summary page for each of the funding sources, so you can track
Yeah.
where each of them are.
Anybody wanna make a
I make a
motion on
motion,
it?
we pay LLB $5,000.
The motion is to pay LLB?
What about all outstanding invoices?
Yeah, there's
We're
only
gonna do
one.
one
We're
at a
gonna do
time.
this.
There's only one, right, for 5,000?
There's one for LLB, and then there are 2 invoices for J&D.
Yes, correct.
So that was, you saw one of those invoices on your last,
Yeah.
agenda,
Yeah,
and
we
then
didn't have a place to pay it.
the second invoice came in afterwards, and that was in preparation for your, meeting.
So George, is your,
My motion is to pay LLB.
okay, I'll
Yeah.
second that.
Okay. Anybody wanna talk about that bill, or are we just gonna vote on it? All right, all in favor of paying LLD signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to it? Okay, now we're on to,
The J&D bills, I'm looking at 3 unpaid bills, is that correct?
two.
It's actually,
Well,
three, right? it's
Two pieces
two
of
bills,
one.
but there's, one bill is split into 2
Combined.
components, yeah.
Two components.
So if you look at invoice number 4,
Yeah.
there's actually, one piece related to the, Tar Park conversion, when they were still trying to determine if they needed alternate land in order to be able to, accomplish.
I wanna move this along, so I'm gonna make a motion that we pay J&D also then we can have some discussion if you'd like after that.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, George.
I'm making a motion that we go ahead and pay for the work that they've done,
Both invoices?
the two invoices that are, were actually, one is combined, so it looks like a total of about almost $5,000.
Somebody wanna second that?
I do.
I have a question.
Mhm.
It's more about procedure and ownership. There are some in the administration and town hall structure that think that our committee doesn't have ownership or oversight over the fields. Just state of fact. There are people that don't think that we have that ownership.
I'm good with that.
Okay. So A, there's that gray area there. Do we have ownership of the fields? Do we not have ownership of the fields? Okay? I'm just stating fact. I'm not saying I agree with one
Yeah.
side. Okay. Item number 2, has this committee hired J&D to do any work? No. So, on the one hand, we're being asked to pay a bill for work done on a project that some people think we don't even have ownership over. And 2, we're being asked to pay a bill that we never asked to have done in the first place. So, I hope that on Monday, these questions can get addressed and answered, because I don't like the fact that we're here having to go over these bills and haggle out, should we pay them, should we not pay them, why are they charging us what they're charging us, when you have these questions hanging over us.
No, I get that.
Does it make sense?
No, I get that. I'm just looking at it, that J&D did a job and, they should
Well-
get paid for it, and this is an argument for us to bring up Monday with the Board of Selectmen and say, what's what, But,
So should we wait until
Well,
after our Monday
well,
meeting?
that's what I'm suggesting, because the town has already paid some of these bills without coming in front of us. These previous bills to J&D, $944.65 and $910, we never voted on anything from J&D.
and that came out of our.
It came out of our account, somebody
It
approved
did.
it, it wasn't us.
Correct, and that was during the time period of that lack of communication, which is why I opted and chose to put these invoices back onto your agenda like you were having in the past. Because I was trying to recognize that there was a lack of communication that was going on during that time period. So, that's why they came back onto your, slate.
Could I follow up with that and ask the question, who authorized those payments to J&D?
The mayor and Willie did. Because they were, at the time that Doug passed, they were scrambling to try and figure out where everything was. And at the time, it appeared to be a recreation type of facility. And so Tony, trying to get a handle on everything that was going on, handed it to Willie and said, here, make some forward momentum on this. And Willie was trying to do due diligence and trying to move forward on this. And so they were finding a lot of different engineers that were working in a lot of different aspects of this, and it was confusing. And so they tried to narrow it to one to get a better handle on everything that was going on all at the same time, and they moved forward with J&D to try and gain that order. And that's really where this generated from. That's the information that I've got.
So,
That's what I've got.
so we have a motion, and either we go ahead and pay it, or we wait till Monday, but right now we have to act on the motion that's on the floor, so.
Well, George, I'm not asking you to do this, but is it an option for George to rescind his motion? And
Well, it's always
thereby
an
waiting
option
until Monday?
for me to do it, I'm just,
Why don't we just vote on it, and if it doesn't go Fourth, it fails.
Well, my question is, if the motion fails, the bills are rejected, we don't pay them.
Somebody's gonna pay them, they've done the work, it just won't be this committee. The town is
Okay.
obligated,
So-
regardless, they're gonna get paid,
Correct, so this is
Yeah.
just a dog and pony show then?
pretty much. You can-
Well, it's back to,
they were authorized by the town is obligated to pay them, whether it's this committee that does it or another
May first meeting.
function, it's gotta get paid. So if it's not done here, it's gonna be done somewhere else.
And wouldn't it be more appropriate that we hold until the joint meeting and see if we can resolve this
But
and
if
get
it's
some better
this-
direction?
If it's this committee's charge to do the paying of these bills,
But we didn't authorize this work.
so they can do what they did before.
then don't vote for it and let it fail. That's all I can tell you.
But like you said though, Alma, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't, it's gonna get paid. The town authorized, we talked about this when we were talking about the charter
No.
committee. The town authorized something, you
Yeah,
order something as a
this-
town employee, we're gonna pay for it because that person or person who worked for the town ordered it in good faith. We've used it, we have the material, somebody authorized it. You can't
Essentially,
say,
this
I'm
is
sorry,
where
I'm not
I'm
gonna do it
coming
because it wasn't, this committee didn't order it, somebody at the town did, so the town is obligated to pay it.
Okay,
If this
answers
committee
my
doesn't
question.
wanna take that charge, that's fine,
Right.
but it will be paid somewhere down the line.
Oh, yeah.
We needed that
Answers my
information.
question.
Yeah, to me,
That's a no.
again, and the reason why to me, the reason I brought it up is that J&D did some work, they need to get paid. And like you said, they're gonna get paid regardless. I think the other issue is a separate fight that's gonna come up again, I guess it's all semantics at that point. We'll be discussing this on May first as to who's doing what. And at the end of the day, J&D is still gonna get paid, and it's still gonna come out of this account,
And I'm not holding J&D
responsible.
responsible, that they did what they were asked to do, it
Right.
just wasn't by this committee.
And I get what you're saying, but if we sit
Okay.
Monday and it is decided that, okay, maybe the committee is to do it, so we're gonna wait for another meeting a month later to pay them. So if you don't wanna do it, that's fine, but we need to figure out how we get it to that we don't, if this committee end up being the charge for it, I don't want them to be out this money for another month.
Correct.
Well, the second part of this issue, from what I'm hearing, is that, do you want J&D to do the second part of the contract?
Right.
That's kind of what I'm hearing here.
Do we have the time to go out to bid?
That's another time constraint.
Well, we'll go back to that other discussion, I don't think you wanna open up that can of worms tonight.
So so we have a motion on the floor, we have to either have to,
I say let's move the motion, let's, vote on it.
All right, the motion is to pay the three invoices, $1,290, $2,155, and $1,540, made by George, seconded by Alma, correct? All those in favor of the motion, I guess we better show of hands for this one. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, all opposed? The ayes have it. While we're counting numbers, it says in our resolution, we're supposed to have 8 members? Correct? The resolution that we have is supposed to be 8 members on this committee?
The quorum is
That's what
5
we
now,
have.
right?
Yeah, we have 8 now, where's Nick?
Where that came into play was when, the library board members were added.
No, the resolution came after that, I believe.
And there were to be 2 of us, but John declined.
Right. That's where it kinda grew.
Okay, that doesn't mean anything, I'm just curious, I'm just counting heads here, so. The publicity subcommittee, where did that name come from, publicity? Is that just something that we stuck on there?
I have no idea where the name came from.
I just,
Your marketing.
yeah, I don't know, public relations, does that sound better? I don't know, I just feel like it needs to be named something else, maybe I'm wrong.
Marketing committee is what it says in here.
Yeah, that's what they call it, yeah.
You want it to be public
Says on the
relations?
agenda, publicity subcommittee. but-
Yeah, that's my mistake.
Yeah.
Wanna make it public relations?
Marketing.
Marketing is what it
Marketing.
says later on in here.
So, do you think it's an appropriate time, based on that timetable that they showed us tonight, for us to start doing something with that, Mary?
We don't have any cost estimates for any,
No, I mean planning, based upon when we're gonna get the numbers. You know, planning with that committee, when we're gonna do after, is that fair?
I mean, you can always start meeting and discussing, you know, what events that you may wanna, you know, after knowing that timeline, if we, you know, if we can all stay within that timeline, then, what events and what do you need to do to prepare for those and that kind of stuff, so you are, you know, if it's a matter of like reserving tables or something like that at one of the, you would wanna be able to start that process, so you may wanna, I don't know who's part of your subcommittee on that.
Yeah, it is, she's got the list, there's one, you know, from each of the organizations that were here tonight, plus, the Board of Select, Scott was here too, from the Board of Selectmen, and then, let's see, who's else, you from the town hall. Yeah, they're listed there, yeah. But, maybe we ought to bring that up on Monday when we're, and bring it up and just mention what we're doing, because the bulk of the discussion Monday is all about this project. I believe that's what this whole thing is about Monday.
I think it's all of the, you know, just in
Yeah.
general, all of it.
I think that with Doug's passing and you replacing him, that the whole, way things are done has changed, so that's necessitated this meeting, in my mind at least.
I'm just trying to get everybody back in the same room, on the same page, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
I have to tell the chair that I won't be able to be present Monday because I have a union negotiations
Okay.
for the Board of Ed.
What
Thank
time
you.
is that meeting on Monday? 7?
Six o'clock.
Six.
Any other business legally to come before this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
9:10.
We ran out of public. We all laughed at them.
What's on the table? Sure.